Hello friends, Jennifer Pearson here, doing a spread that was inspired by a spread modeled after a spread that I saw on Dee's channel over at Divination. And what is hers called? Let me see. It was a post called Spiritual Progress Tarot Spread. Sorry, I've got cats out. They're agitating. It's bedtime. Yep, it's bedtime. So we'll see. Hopefully I won't have to stop this and do it over again. But yeah, it's bedtime, and heaven forbid I go to bed at bedtime. And not only that, but we're not only going to do this. I think if something is worth doing, it's worth overdoing. So we're going to use 3 different decks. We'll see. I'm just really curious. So, Dee triggered me. Blame Dee. But so she had this spiritual cycle spread. And I just thought, yeah, I'm sure I have spiritual cycles. I'm sure I have one. I'm sure I have a spiritual cycle. I've never thought about it. So I really wanted to explore what my spiritual cycle is. So this is the set of questions that I ended up with. So number 1, what is the center of my spiritual cycle? So I'm thinking about this. I decided to think about it in kind of medicine wheel terms. So you've got kind of 4 quadrants, and you've got the center, and you make your way around and around and around the outside there, through the different phases at different times of your life or times of the year, etc. Just that 4 phase cycle. So we have the center. So I want to pull a card for the center, and then we're going to do what are the phases of my spiritual cycle. So I'm going to pick 4 cards for that. And then, what phase am I in now? And since I'm not going to put cards back in any of these decks, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull a card, and I'm going to use the phases that came up in the previous question, and I'm going to try to place that. So everything might fall apart right there. But anyway, when I say what phase am I in now, I'm going to try to place whatever card comes up either between 2 phases or in a phase. So number 4, what is most beneficial about my time in this phase? So my assumption here is that every phase has a purpose. It's not something that needs to be remedied. It's not something that needs to be rushed through. It just is a natural part of things. And so what is most beneficial about that, my time in that phase? And then the next one is what is most challenging about my time in that phase? And the last is an advice card for the moment. So part of the reason that I'm using multiple decks is because I decided to use the Greenwood, and the Greenwood in itself can be kind of a challenging deck for me to read from. So we'll see, and I haven't used it in a while. So I wanted backup. And this deck, which is The Soul's Journey by James Van Praagh, this deck has shown itself to be decent for clarifying the Greenwood. And I thought that really, in a question of spiritual cycles, probably the Native Spirit is the best, one of the better decks at any rate, that I could use for this. So before we start, I want to respond a little bit to another person's video that I saw. It was Brania over at Brania K Spiritual. She did a witchcraft and mental health video that she posted either today or yesterday. And I just wanted to say, Brian, to anybody else out there. She was kind of talking about, so I think it goes with this video, she was kind of talking about her own phases of life that she goes through, and that sometimes it becomes difficult for her to maintain any sort of, you know, quote-unquote practice during that time. And one thing I wanted to say was, not that long ago, I don't know if it was between the first and second vaccination, there was a time, I think that's what it was, between the first and second vaccination. I was COVID vaccination. So I was feeling the effects of the vaccination to some extent, but I thought I was doing okay, which is, I do sometimes. I think I'm doing okay when I'm not. And this was shamanic journeying, so I had done a shamanic journey to do with an ancestral line and kind of clearing that ancestral line. And I ended up with this whole task that my guides gave me to do. And it was like every day, this was it. You have to come. I was given a block. It was kind of a trial of sorts. I don't know that I'll ever go into it in great detail, but I was given this like pyramidal block, sort of the sort of thing that you might see like the footing of a bridge, you know, or something like that. So I was given that I had to dissolve. I had to dissolve it, and I was to come every day. In other words, I was to journey. I was told to journey every day. And so I did that, and at the end of that, I think I tried to go back and do other things or something, but even in the phase of doing that, there was at least one day where I went forward with the journey. Again, I didn't think I was feeling that way, but I went forward with the journey, and I got where I was meeting my companions, or taskmasters, however you want to think of them, of that journey that I was repeatedly going to. And it was just like, no, you're not strong enough for this right now. Turn around, go back, not now, you know. And then again, there was a time toward the end where since after that week I was in the habit of journeying. I went ahead and journeyed and went back. I don't know that I had any aim anymore, but essentially the main guide there said, you're not as well as you think you are. You're not as well as you think you are. Go away, go back, and wait until you feel better. And so I haven't for, I don't know, gosh, probably 3 weeks or a month or something. I just let it go. I let it go. I mean, that's on the advice of the spirit guides. Let it stop. You need to be more rested to do this stuff. So there you go. Yeah, nobody can tell you what to do. You go by your own rhythms, and again, what your higher guides are saying. You know, go home, rest. This is not what you need to be doing right now. So, spiritual cycles. Let's take a look. Here we go. The center. What is at the center? The Knight of Arrows. Interesting. I am on the Hawk identified end of things, so how interesting that comes up. So we're just going to take some cards here. Spirit Keeper of the South. Do I have that book handy? Because this isn't going to mean anything to me right away. And Freedom. Oh, okay. I possess the power and the free will to create my own happiness. Uh-oh. No, my cat says I'm supposed to be creating her happiness. Yeah. I'm not feeding you right now. If you keep yakking at me, I'm going to put you in your room. Oh, double yackers. Double yackers. Let me see what... I get these Spirit Keeper cards quite often. Abundance and prosperity in all forms. Expansion, surging energy, activity, movement, rapid growth. I could see rapid growth being true. Be open to receiving the bounty of the universe. This is a great time for medical procedures. Oh my goodness, your energy will be at a maximum. With that in there, it almost is like, part of my cycle that they're going to show me, which is interesting. Okay, so this is my physical cycle as well of healing. When you have Lyme disease, it's up and down and up and down, and you think you're okay, and then you're not. So, I at one time said that, how did I say it, that my 2 years while I was completely not working was completely wiped out, the first 2 years with Lyme disease, that it was a spiritual retreat. So, maybe that's a fundamental aspect of my spiritual journey, or it could be that my physical body is dictating. I know people like to think it's the reverse, but I see no reason why it couldn't be the opposite, that my body is dictating my spiritual cycles. Just like I just talked about, where the spirit guides on the journey were saying, no, not until you feel better. It wasn't that the spirit guides were saying, yes, we can heal you, we can do this. It's like, no, not until you feel better. You have to do something on your end before we can proceed in this way. And freedom, and that can mean so much. And I have been somebody who really values my freedom. It's part of the reason I didn't have children, and it's part of the thing that makes having Lyme disease and the limited movement that results from Lyme disease because of limited energy, getting overwhelmed, all kinds of stuff that comes along with it, that is one of the hardest things for me to deal with, is that I can't just pick up and go and move. And certainly the hawk, being a creature of both larger and acute vision and speed and freedom of movement, these make some sense together. Alright, so what on earth do my phases look like? Yes, Jasmine? The noisiest cat here is Jasmine. So I'll just start here. I don't think that they're like 1, 2, 3, but I'm going to put them in positions here. So we're starting with the sun. Very interesting. Oh, and then the shaman, which is number 1, so like the magician in this deck. And I, just as kind of an aside, I don't know what I'll make of that, but I usually consider the magician a Gemini card, and I am a Gemini rising. So that's interesting. And then down here we have an Ace of Wands, so it's interesting how much energy is coming out in this. And of course, I guess, that's Lyme disease and is an issue of energy, right? And again, I don't think that this is about, but there it is, 7 of Wands. Who'd have thunk? The sun and then this Wands energy. So interesting. I certainly did not intend for this to be about my health issues, but either my spiritual cycle is reflected in my health, or my health is influencing the spiritual cycle, or my spiritual cycle right now needs to be about my health because of its problems that it presents. Okay. So I will I don't think I need to explain these cards too much. I'm so grateful that the Greenwood isn't giving me too challenging cards in terms of interpretation. I will mention that the Seven of Wands in this deck to me is quite different than a Seven of Wands in a traditional deck. To me this looks like, you know, storing wood. There you've got a pile of wood that has been cut, storing wood for the winter kind of a thing. So kind of, to me it's like reserving, knowing when to reserve energy and when to expend it. And the Ace is pretty traditional. The Sun is the Sun. As I said, the Shaman is the number 1, so similar to the Magician, but not really. You know, it's the Shaman. To me, it could just be going inward, but it could be a matter of, it could be that this is now part of my spiritual cycle. Certainly I can't say that it was in the past. I didn't know anything about it until, I don't know, about 4 or 5 years ago, something like that. I knew what shamanism was, of course, but I never looked into it. Alright, so next, for the top we have Eagle Medicine. To go with the Shaman we have Spirit Keeper of the North. To go with the Ace of Wands we have Shapeshifter. How interesting. And the Seven of Wands is the Elder. That's interesting also. Now I'm not going to, at least not at this point, I'm just going to pull some cards and continue here so that you guys just kind of see the result, and we'll see if I want to go on and read bits of the Native Spirit guidebook. Oh, so here we have fear. So we have fear up there with the Sun and the Eagle. Is it Eagle Medicine? I realize that I am testing my resolve to live in the energy of love. Oh my gosh. And then over here we have pride. I love myself and I see myself in everyone. So we go from fearing supposedly the love to loving myself and seeing myself in everyone. And down here on the bottom with Shapeshifter and Ace of Wands we have denial. And here it is again, fear. I acknowledge my fear, but I replace it with the insight of awareness. And the last cycle, success. I know that there is no greater goal than to love. Gosh, I don't remember this deck being all, and it's not. I've just got love, 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 love. And I'm just looking, and no other card I have looked at as I flip through this has to do with love. Alright. Alright. So that's pretty pointed. So there are those. Like I said, I will probably explore these further either privately or a little later in the video. We'll see how long it gets. So this is my cycle. This is my cycle. So the next card is what is most beneficial. Whoops, no. What phase am I in now? And this is my challenge, is going to be to place this somewhere on this cycle. And here we have the Storyteller. This is a card that is unique to this deck. You can see it's 22, the Storyteller. And it's really interesting to me that this is not a part of the cycle, but it's where I'm at now. The phase I'm in now. And that the way I'm doing this challenges me to put this storyteller somewhere. And I say that this is really interesting because I went to university and studied literature and the writing of poetry specifically. And my fiction days were mainly when I was a teenager, thinking in terms of fantasy fiction writing. But it has stuck with me to some extent throughout the years. I've thought about doing that again. But of course, I guess I would tend to lean toward putting the storyteller over here with shaman, because the journey is a story. So I would put it here, here, or here. So let's see what else we have with the phase. Empathy. I am open to seeing both sides of the situation. And vision quest. So to me, this definitely is leaning toward this phase, or between. So that wasn't as difficult. The Greenwood is being nice to me. It's making this not too awfully hard to do. Okay. So there we go. So what is most beneficial about my period in this phase? What is most beneficial? The Three of Cups, yes, with the empathy over here. That makes a lot of sense. Well, let me get the native spirit next. Talking stick. That makes a lot of sense with the storyteller. And the Three of Cups. And lastly, honesty. Okay, again, those went quite nicely together. And I'm going to put this over here as... I can see I'm going to get these all mixed up, aren't I? And then, what is most challenging about my time in this phase? So, what is most challenging about my time in this phase? The Hermit. What's interesting, because this, of course, is solitude generally. But we had signals here with the Three of Cups and the talking stick that there would be a social aspect to it. Maybe it's that social aspect. Well, but this is what's beneficial. Oh, let's just keep pulling cards. Whoops. Walking in beauty. Maybe it's just saying the journey itself is what is most challenging. And regret. I know that I cannot change the past. So that's getting a little deeper. It may be saying that, having to come out of solitude and sharing that walk or the journeys or whatever is what is most challenging. Okay. And the last is advice. So let's see here. What is the general advice for right now? Queen of Stones. I'm also bear identified. So it's got two of my significant, many years identifiers here on the board. Greenwood's really coming through here. Knight of Arrows and the Queen of Stones, the Hawk and the Bear. Alright, advice, Thunder Drum. again, I got to make noise. I can't just be the hermit. I've got to make noise and be the storyteller. So I guess I do need to come on and share some of these journeys with you. It seems like this is definitely talking about this. And telling stories about adversity. I accept that challenges are the best way to learn. So really interesting. More interesting than I expected it to be. And I'm going to have to kind of delve into the whole love cycle thing, which is not something that I was expecting to show up here. Not at all. So I'm pausing here to think about whether to look into the medicine cards a little bit more deeply on camera, or whether to not. I guess I will do it on camera. I don't know that it will result in any differences. So for those of you who are happy to be done now, I officially grant you leave. Because now I'm going to go into, we did this, but I think I need to go into, I want to understand the cycle a little better, particularly. So I'm going to do that. So this was the last. Oops. And since I was doing it like that, it's going to go like that. So we're going to delve into these. I talked about the center, and I'm going to start up here, but I don't have like a strong feeling that any one of these is like a place of beginning. At any given moment, any of them are the place of beginning. So we had the Sun card. And it's interesting that that's not what with success and the whole being a very introverted person. I would say that I have suffered at times with that, the whole notion of a fear of success and the attention. I've never liked a lot of attention on me. I realize that I am testing my resolve to live in the energy of love. So as I talk about that issue with the sun and being the center of attention, I eventually did, and how that has to do with love. Certainly there, with teaching, becoming a teacher, being tricked or forced into the role of being a teacher, which is how it happened. At least the first time that I took over a class, it was because the teacher was leaving, was quitting. She was a volunteer teacher. I was a volunteer helper of the teacher, and since the volunteer teacher left, I was left there with people I couldn't talk to. English as a second language class. And was like, well, you sat in on the class one day, so you know better than anybody else here what she was doing. It's like, oh my God. But anyway, so one of the things that you have to rely on, I think, in a situation like that, and a lot in general, if you are up front and center, is the good intentions of the people who are before you. That their goal in life isn't to undermine you, but in fact to be generous in spirit towards you. Maybe not so far as to love you, but at least to be generous in spirit. And of course that doesn't always work. I've been in teaching situations after that. Thank God that was not my first experience, but I had been in teaching experiences after that where that was not the case. And And I completely did not do well in that situation. It's like, you kind of have to grant me that generosity of spirit, or I'm not going to do well. I have to depart. I'm not going to stay in that kind of toxic environment. But eagle medicine. So maybe sometimes I don't cycle like this. Maybe I cycle up and down. Eagle medicine up here. Profound connection to the Creator and the heavenly realms. As the eagle soars high above the earth, it has the ability to see things from a higher perspective. Courage and stamina are filling your life. And you have ferocity to right injustice and wrongs done to you or to others. This is the time to face fear and overcome it. I would say that it kind of cycles through my life. And I can see that as part of like a challenge that comes, and sometimes I do. I was just like with the teaching thing. Sometimes I do well, sometimes I don't. It depends on the conditions, etc. So interesting. An interesting addition with the sun. So almost the sun, I see, when we talk about that injustice thing, the sun card I would see then kind of as an advocate for unity. On this sun card, you have a bunch of different kinds of plants all around it. So there's a unity aspect here. So very interesting. So let's take a look at the next one. The shaman with the spirit keeper of the north and pride, which is I love myself and I see myself in everyone. Where'd they go? Spirit keeper of the north. So what I had spirit keeper of the south and the north, and then this is the shapeshifter, eagle, and elder. All right. Spirit keeper of the north, taking time for contemplation. Take time for contemplation. Turn within. So this is more outward, and this is more inward. Take time for contemplation, turn within, connect with your ancestors, incubate ideas, which is interesting because so much of my journeying recently has been connecting with ancestors. Incubate ideas, mend relationships. We kind of saw that with the Three of Cups, not necessarily mending, but nurturing anyway. Watch your dreams, meditate, the answers are inside you waiting to be heard. Stay warm, create dreams of your future, repair whatever is broken in your home and your life. Forgive these people and situations that you've been dragging around for a while. So this is kind of like outward, and this is to me, again being an introvert, this is like outward action and recovery. Recovery from the outward action. And processing the outward action, maybe. Alright, so let's look down here. This might then, with the Ace of Wands, be like a renewal of energy. And shapeshifter, and then denial. I acknowledge my fear, but I replace it with the insight of awareness. So let's look at shapeshifter. You can be anything you desire. So I'm going to be thinking here about how it fits in with denial, acknowledging fear, but replace it with the insight of awareness. You can be anything you desire. Let go of attachment to your identity. See the world around you with new eyes. Be malleable. Experiment with different ways of viewing reality. See the point of view of others. If you haven't been able to manifest your dreams, maybe you need to shift the way you see the person or situation. or the world, or who I am. I get the feeling, and I'm not going to do that here, but I get the feeling that one of the things I need to look at as I study this, and I think it is deserving of study, is how each one of these relates to the center, that core freedom, yeah. And since all of these have to do about love, I think that one of my, if I didn't pull a card for a dilemma, but I would say kind of my spiritual dilemma is freedom, which also means separation from people, leaving people, traveling, leaving people, moving to different places, which is what I did in the early part of my life. The dilemma between freedom and love, which attaches you to things. So denial, I acknowledge my fear, but I replace it with the insight of awareness. So maybe the fear here is loss of identity in the shape-shifting. Very interesting. But I almost see this Ace of Wands now, not so much as new energy as inspiration. So let's move on to the next one. What do we have? We have Elder. And we have that Seven of Wands. It's like kind of knowing when to store or harvest energy and when to expend it. And then we have Success. I know that there is no greater goal than to love. I love the mandalas. I like this mandala too, but this is just such a cool mandala. It's almost stained glass window-ish. Elder. Confidence. Well, that goes with success, surely. Entering your power, that goes with success also. Standing strong, that goes with the Seven of Wands, even though this is not a traditional Seven of Wands. Stepping into the light. The synchronicities here are pretty amazing. Yeah, stepping into the light of the fire there. Let your truth be heard and felt by others. Make a stand in life. Again, very much in tune with Seven of Wands. It's funny that this is Elder. I suppose Elder is kind of like leader, is what they're meaning here when they use the word Elder. You carry deep inner wisdom. You are a teacher and a leader. There's the word. A leader in the deepest sense of the words. You are a beacon for others. So very interesting. And so there you are with that. And then you cycle around. Super curious. Super interesting. So, alright, do I want to, heaven forbid I should have a video that's less than an hour, right? So what is this? What phase am I in now? You know what, I think these were pretty straightforward and easy to understand. The Hermit was a little bit of a question mark for me. So I'm not going to go any further here. Because I think these were fairly straightforward. Gosh, thanks, Dee. I don't know if you've stayed till the very end here, but this is super interesting. Definitely I will be recording this and doing some journaling around it. And probably even taking pictures of the cards that are together. Because I think that this is highlighting something larger that I do cycle through. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. I think it touches pretty deeply into, I won't even say who I am so much as who I have been in the process of becoming. Let me put it that way. Who I have been in the process of becoming in this life. I think this is touching on that. And frankly with resistance. Yeah, it was not my idea to be a teacher, like I said, I was kind of thrown into it. And definitely have had my failures and etc. And it's interesting to me that here I thought about my teaching, and here the teaching is actually mentioned. This makes me think of, Hani, if you are watching, have watched all the way to the end here, reminds me of the reading you did for me where you said that I should do some sort of teaching. Alright, you guys, calling it done. My poor cats have given up on me, so I will shock them by calling the video done and going and putting them through their little nightly routine. Take care. Bye-bye.